Flames of Destruction is the newest Yu-Gi-Oh! Booster set to be released here in the TCG, and has given us a whole plethora of cards to work with, but I think one of the new archetypes released in this set has changed the way links should be built moving forward. We're going to be talking about Knightmares today. Let's get right into it.
Man, I feel like a woman.
What's up, my Nimrods? It's Gage, coming back at you guys again with another dose of that fresh, never frozen Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. Hey, I'm really freaking happy you guys would spend a couple minutes with me here today. Talk about a children's card game we both mutually enjoy so fucking much. So, like I said, today we're talking about Knightmares, one of the new archetypes to be released in Flames of Destruction, which we just got rather recently, and I think this is one of the best Link archetypes we've gotten in a very long time. I think it actually changes and sets a new standard for how Link monsters should be designed moving forward, just because of how powerful some of these cards are and how impactful they will be for the future of Links. Knightmares are strictly a package of Link monsters with the exception of one other monster that are supposed to work very well in tandem to each other, and the goal with these Knightmares is to co-link them to get additional advantage off of what would normally be a minus. All these Knightmares, by design, are supposed to work impeccably together. However, that does not discount the fact that most of these Knightmares in their design are just really freaking powerful if you don't want to tie them in with the rest of the archetype. Today, I'm going to give you guys the overview of all the cards we have released now for the Knightmares, and to talk about exactly why they're good and which ones may be good on their own. You probably have already figured it out by now by a lot of decks playing it. Been around for a little bit in the OCG, but if you guys are new, unfamiliar with the archetype, this will be your video to get you up to speed. Did you guys know that all the Knightmares are actually tied to the Mech Knights, and that Knightmare Mermaid is actually the Knightmare that's tied to Indigo Blue, otherwise known as the Move Man? That's my favorite one. Alright, so we're going to kick it off with the main package of the Knightmares, and that's all the Link monsters that are associated with them. And we're going to kick it off with one that's, I think, a little bit more simple to realize exactly what this archetype is meant to do. We're going to kick it off with Knightmare Phoenix. Knightmare Phoenix is a Link 2 Fire Fiend with 1900 attack. It has a top and a right arrow pointing to it, and it requires, as all the other Knightmares do with the exception of Mermaid, 2 monsters, or 2 or more depending on their Link level, with different name. The summoning condition is kind of reminiscent of that of Saryuja's Skulldrake, but the thing about Saryuja is you can use tons of monsters, even with the same name to summon it, you will just get less effects applied to it. However, Knightmares work exclusively on the fact that you have to use monsters with different names. Well, what's Knightmare Phoenix do? Let's talk about it. All the Knightmare monsters have an effect that activate upon the Link summon, where you discard a card and then it does something, and then if the monster happens to be co-linked, you can draw a card after activating, which would mitigate the fact that you would go -1 by discarding for the effect. Phoenix's effect upon its Link summon allows you to discard 1 card, then target 1 spell or trap card your opponent controls and destroy it. And then all the Knightmare monsters have an additional continuous effect while they're face up on the field. Phoenix's is that co-linked monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. Phoenix is obviously a really good, simple card. Being able to pop a spell or trap on the field is really important for removing floodgates that maybe you normally couldn't get rid of. Cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance might be a little bit more difficult to get around because of the fact you maybe can't flip your Twin Twisters on it when your opponent would activate it. There's obviously a huge package of really simple ways to deal with these floodgate cards that may be floating around in your deck, but being able to have a Link monster you can just reliably make with any 2 monsters with different names to be able to remove a spell or trap card that might be giving you a little bit of trouble is pretty helpful. It's kind of the same reason that Tornado Dragon is a good card, just being an XYZ you can go into to remove anything, rather than having to forcibly draw your Twin Twister or something and being stuck in a position that maybe you can't win the game if you don't get to those cards. Phoenix's effect is really powerful, really simple, and it's overall a really good card, staple package in any of Knightmare decks. Actually, a surprising thing about Knightmares that you'll come to find out is that almost every single card in the archetype, actually most of the time, 100% of the cards, are played in a deck. With that in mind, let's go to one of the cards that complements Phoenix, and that is Knightmare Cerberus, which is a Link 2 Fiend with a left and a top arrow. Cerberus's Link summon effect is you can discard a card, then target 1 special summon monster in your opponent's main monster zone and destroy it, and as all the other ones, if it's co-linked, draw another card. And then Cerberus's aura effect is that co-linked monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. Cerberus is also a really powerful card with a lot of utility use. However, it's a little bit more narrow than that of Phoenix being able to pop any spell or trap. You have to pop something specifically in the main monster zone. This is still a very powerful effect, especially if you're able to get that co-link draw off of it. You're not losing advantage and you're removing a card from the board for essentially free at that point. That's really good. Protecting co-linked monsters by destruction by card effects is also really powerful too, being able to protect things from a potential Raigeki or a Torrential Tribute or something like Dark Hole. I don't know what you're up against. Maybe you get something wacky flipped on you that would destroy. If you happen to stick the Cerberus, it'll protect whatever's above it and whatever to the left of it. If you happen to nail some pretty hefty link monsters to those two zones, something that maybe would be easily removable, it's going to be just that much more difficult to get off the board with Cerberus co-linked to it. Now let's talk about the last link 2 monster, and it's arguably the best of the archetype. That is Knightmare Goblin. Knightmare Goblin's link summon effect is when it's link summoned, you can discard 1 card and then you get an additional normal summon that turn. That's literally crazy. The way this card is worded is also incredibly cool for the fact that it actually can stack that additional normal summon on top of something like Seraphonite or double summon, whereas you normally couldn't be able to activate 2 double summon or use Gem Knight Seraphonite and double summon in tandem. Goblin can actually be used in tandem with both of those. And then Goblin's R effect is neither player can target your co-linked monsters with card effects. Obviously, not being able to target something is extremely powerful as well. Goblin, I just think is the whole package when it comes to the Knightmare deck. Knightmare not only gives you an additional normal summon, which will normally net you a whole bunch more advantage off of a card you would normal summon. Normally these normal summons are extremely important for really any deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! And then like I said, not being able to target something, we can think of a card like BORRELOAD Dragon, which is already a pain in the ass to deal with. You're going to be making something that equally that difficult to deal with. It's pretty sick. Knightmare Goblin, in most people's eyes, is easily the best card of the archetype, and with good reason. Has a lot of utility and actually can be used in pretty much almost any deck that wants to have that additional normal summon. The draw, negligent. You don't need it when you get a free normal summon. On to the next one. We're talking about the Link 3 in the form of Knightmare Unicorn. It has a left, right, and a bottom arrow. Kind of weird arrows if you ask me, but hey, it has a pretty good effect to stack on top of it. Knightmare Unicorn is that Link 3, 2200 attack, requires 2+ monsters with different names, and its Link summon effect is you can discard 1 card, then target 1 card on the field and return it to the deck. Unicorn's R effect isn't really even a R effect. I think it's one of actually the least useful ones. It is while any co-linked Knightmare monsters on the field, for your normal draw during your draw phase, draw 1 card for each different card name among these co-linked Knightmare monsters instead of just drawing 1 card. Obviously, you can be drawing a lot of cards for your draw phase. If you can stick the Unicorn, if you can stick your crazy board you poop out with these cards, you can be getting a lot of draws during the following turn, but that's just the point. It's the following turn. Normally, when you give your opponent a turn to out a board, they'll find a way to out as much as they can. I don't think you're going to be keeping as many monsters on the board to be getting some nutty advantage. Maybe you can draw an additional card for your draw phase, but if you are able to do that, you're pretty much almost always in a point you're going to be winning the game anyways. Games in Yu-Gi-Oh! Aren't really lasting too long, and if you are able to resolve this effect, if you are able to draw even just 1 more additional card, I'm willing to put my money that you'll probably win that game. Unlike the other Knightmares we talked about, Unicorn's aura effect isn't one that really affects your opponent's turn, which the other ones are really, really good at by protecting monsters, by battle, card effects, or being targeted, and those are all really powerful things to have. Unicorn's ability really rewards you for playing the entire Knightmare package and getting it on the field, which is normally what this archetype is meant to do, but if you aren't able to accomplish that, it's probably one of the weaker ones of the bunch. However, spot removal for any card on the field, by shuffling it into the deck even, is really good, and it's not something to be discounted. Like I said before, you're playing every Knightmare in the entire package that you're offered, just because they're all really good, and being a Link 3, this is actually one of the better, if not one of the best Link 3s we have currently in the game. You got to stack it up between things like Decode Talker and Ningrisu, the World Chalice guy. Those cards are obviously really powerful in their own right, but Unicorn being able to remove something from the board is extremely powerful, and it also has a pretty easy condition to be able to summon it with, just 2+ monsters with different names, not something too difficult to achieve. So the fact that this card's a Link 3, it separates it and definitely puts it ahead as one of the best Link 3s we have currently in the game, which is why you'll see it in your Knightmare deck. Knightmare Griffin is what most people would call the boss monster of the package. It is a Link 4 with the same arrows as Firewall Dragon, that's top, left, bottom, and right. Griffin's effect is insane. It's when it's Link summoned, you can discard a card, then target 1 spell or trap in your graveyard and set it to your field. However, you can't activate it that turn. And then Griffin's aura effect is also insane, which is special summoned monsters on the field cannot activate their effect unless they are linked. Knightmare Griffin is an absolute powerhouse, being able to get you back advantage from something maybe you discarded with your other Knightmare monsters. If you discarded a card like Solemn Strike or Solemn Warning or Infinite Impervious, you can set it from your graveyard with Griffin's effect and also draw an additional card if it happens to be co-linked with which its arrows it has, left, right, top, bottom, shouldn't be too difficult to do. At a 2500 body, this thing actually has an okay thing to sit on as well. Same value, I think, as Firewall Dragon. Gryphon is obviously one of the most powerful cards in the archetype, being essentially a skill drain for all special summon monsters on the field, unless they're linked. And with a card that we're going to talk about later, it can actually get really disgusting for the things you're able to do your opponent with this effect. I neglected to talk about this last link monster until the end because I think it really wraps up the rest of the archetype, plus its condition is a little bit odd, and that's Knightmare Mermaid, which is the only link 1 of the archetype we have. Knightmare Mermaid is a 1000 attack link monster with 1 bottom arrow pointing, which is obviously a good arrow, but its requirement is different, where normally all the other Knightmares would require 2 or more monsters with different names. This one requires a Knightmare monster. So you're going to have to be using any of your other Knightmare link monsters in your package to summon this guy, but its effect is actually really worth it, which its effect is, if it's link summoned, you discard a card to special summon 1 Knightmare monster from your main deck. And also its R effect is monsters on the field lose 1000 attack and defense unless they're co-linked. That's a lot of attack value to use, but we're more worried about the first effect. Summoning a monster from the deck doesn't make too much sense. This entire package is based around the extra deck. Well, there's actually one effect monster that comes from the main deck, and everybody's going to be playing it if you're playing Knightmare Mermaid just because it's a really good card. But this card, Mermaid, doesn't make any sense unless we talk about that card. So let's get into that. The one main deck monster is a level 2 CERBERUS effect monster with 0 attack, 0 defense, and it's Knightmare Corruptor Ibli. Ibli's effect is when she's normal summoned, you can target 1 link monster in your graveyard, special summon it to your field, but change its attack to 0, and negate its effects. You also cannot special summon monsters except link monsters. If this card in its owner's control is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon it to your opponent's side of the field. Ibli might be a little bit confusing of an effect to read at first, just because it is only a normal summoned effect where you get to special summon something from the graveyard, and if it's on the field, you can't special summon anything except link monsters. Why would you hinder yourself like that when you have a 0 attack, 0 defense dude on your field? What's the point? My hands are in my sleeves. That's weird. Well, the thing is, you're not going to really be normal summoning Knightmare Corruptor Ibli. You're mainly going to just be playing 1 copy to summon it off of Mermaid. When you special summon this card off of Mermaid from the deck, you will then use it to link summon into any other Knightmare monster or any other link monster of your choosing, and then give this card to your opponent. This card obviously pairs really well with Gryphon. If you give this card to your opponent cannot special summon any monsters except link monsters, and they're going to be staring down a huge board that you have set up. And also, if they special summon any monsters some way, somehow, their effects are going to be negated because you have Gryphon on the field. But the main burning question is, what's going to be stopping your opponent from just normal summoning a guy and then using Ibli plus that monster to make a link monster? Well, if you happen to extra link out your opponent, which is when you fill up both of the link spots, your opponent's not going to be able to actually summon any link monsters, which effectively makes him have a Vanity's Emptiness up on the field. They can't special summon any monsters at all. That is obviously a really deadly lock, and it's going to lock your opponent out of the main phase 1 at least, because during the battle phase they can flip that Ibli to attack position, crash into any of your dudes, and proceed to main phase 2 like nothing really happened. Still staring down at Gryphon potentially, but that lock is only it's not permanent. However, if you ask any player, forcing your opponent to give up their main phase 1 and their battle phase in a turn is huge. Definitely something that makes it well worth to play this card. Altogether, this Knightmare package is definitely taking the Link era by storm. A lot of decks that would opt to play a lot of Link spammy decks that focus just bringing around multiple Link monsters, will probably opt to play the Knightmare package. It's not unlikely, it's not weird to see decks like Wind-Ups, World Chalice, ABC take full advantage of the Knightmare package and everything it has to offer for the fact that they're able to bring out a couple Link monsters in a turn. ABC is obviously one of the most powerful decks being able to use this package, having wild success in the OCG. I'm expecting to see a lot of the same here in the TCG, especially since we have cards like Terraforming and Buster Drake at 3. The OCG doesn't. Overall, you should definitely expect to see a lot out of this Knightmare package here in the TCG. I'm really excited to test it out myself. It's probably one of my favorite packages, thematics-wise, but also just all their effects are extremely powerful, offering a whole new toolbox to the links that we haven't had before. Let me know what you guys think of the Knightmare package. Are you guys going to be playing him in the deck? If so, what deck are you playing them in? Love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. If you guys liked the video, be sure to like the video, thumbs up the video, 100% you enjoyed the video. If you did like the video, please do consider subscribing to my channel. I'm uploading regularly. It feels pretty good, man. That being said, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, definitely subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Nim Nim signing out.